you talked yesterday about the COVID protocols and, educating players on it. Is there an avenue where a final roster decision could come down to whether or not a player's vaccinated or not?
I think you take everything into consideration, but, that's not something that we've necessarily addressed or talked about internally.
So how do you persuade guys who haven't been? I mean, you've been trying for a while. All the data's out there. I mean, what other, what else is up your sleeve?
Well, all you can do is give them the information and making sure that, you have to, the league is enforcing these protocols, so you have to abide by them, and, it's each individual's own decision.
Matt, you were true to your word yesterday. That was a very light-looking practice. You ramping it up today?
We are going to ramp it up. It'll be closer to the 2-hour mark. Again, just kind of reflecting back to last season with the ramp up, want to make sure we get good work while we're out there, but also want to kind of build these guys up, and then as we progress further into camp, the practices will get longer on some days, and I think we're going to try to find and strike that good balance of having a light day or a moderate day, then go heavy, then tone it down, and then crank it back up.
You got other guys off tomorrow?
Yeah, that's league-wide, so everybody will be off tomorrow.
And then are you going to
Pads Monday or?
No, we cannot go pads on Monday either. That's a new rule this year, and so we'll be in shoulder pads on Tuesday next week.
Well, it's only been a couple of days so far, but what have you been able to see from that dynamic with Amari Rogers and Cobb now that they're teammates and not just kind of mentor-mentees from his childhood?
Yeah, no, it's a great working relationship. There's a lot of conversation that's going on, and we're only 4 days going on the 4th day right now, so I'm sure I'll have more to say as we get further into camp.
Randall talked about how it was really important to him to be a mentor to Amari, just as he's been for a while now, obviously. Do you look at it as that mentorship might be even more important than whatever he's able to give you as a player?
No, not really, no. I think that, that's just one of the things that you love about veterans that have done it at a high level and that are just great people and very smart and intelligent. You love when you go out there, whether it's Randall or the other day at practice, I'm watching Alan Lazard coach up Gaines on some techniques in special teams. So you love it when you see your players or players that have some experience coaching up some of these younger guys that haven't done it yet.
We talked to Jair yesterday, and by the way, he loved this forum with a bunch of reporters and up there.
He was that was pretty special. I'm not sure what he was talking about, but I really enjoyed the message.
I thought it was interesting when he said, some of the younger guys don't come to you with questions, and I didn't either. And he said his message to those guys was, now is the time to try things. So, there's that balance between what your position coach is trying to get you in fundamentally. At the same time, do you want to take a rep and experiment, or what's your message to a player like that?
Well, certainly I think the more confidence you get as a player and the more experience you get, you're probably a little bit more apt to try something maybe that you haven't done before. And, from us as coaches, we try to give them basically the ground rules in terms of alignment, assignment, and the technique. But there's some guys that can do crazy things like a Jair or a Devontae Adams, just some of the stuff that they can do. It's tough to coach. So some of those great players, you give them the freedom to be them.
Speaking of Jair, last year is kind of one of the stories of camp and his rise to being an all-pro type player. But this year it seems like he's setting even higher expectations for himself. What is it about his demeanor, his play, that allows him to exceed his own expectations?
Well, I just think he's a complete package. First of all, he's got the talent. I think he's got great instincts as well, and he works at it. And I think, I mentioned yesterday, I think Jerry Gray's been really good for him. I think Ryan Downard has done a great job with him. And, the goal of any guy, any player, any person really in this organization is to keep improving. So that's what we're looking for, and I think he attacks it with the right mindset each day.
So
I saw him yesterday. Is that pretty similar to how he is on a daily basis?
Who, Ja? Yeah, no, Ja's, his energy is so infectious, and, I just love that he's a part of this team and love having him around.
So you weren't able to shine any light on what it is to see an ant climb up a cold mountain?
I wish I could give you guys some insight on that, but I definitely was feeling what he was saying.
Hey, Matt, I've heard two different defensive guys come in here and say, there is no wrong page if you're on the same page. Is that a LaFleurism? Is that a Barryism? Where does that come from? And is that an emphasis that the communication has to be better? Because we know there were some times last year where it probably wasn't.
Yeah, I think that definitely did not come from me, but I do like that saying. So I don't know if that came from Joe or who that came from, but I do think that it speaks to the point of there's a lot of adjustments in all three phases. And if maybe you might not make the right adjustment, but if everybody's on the same page in terms of what we're doing, you can still go out there and execute whatever that may be. So I think communication is something that we talk about each and every day, and just making sure that, everybody is communicating with one another, and because, it's the ultimate team sport. All it takes is one guy not doing his job and on the defensive side of the ball, and you might give up a big-time play. So that's one of the things that we're always trying to limit is those big explosive plays, and I think it all starts with the communication.
Kenny Clark brought something up too about that, Matt. He said, a new coordinator, yes, but the staff is pretty much intact, and for the most part, the players that have returned have a lot of snaps together. How advantageous is that?
Yeah, I think that's great. There's a lot of carryover between the scheme as well, and I think Joe's adopted a lot of the terminology that we've used in the past, and that helped, I guess, expedite the learning curve for everybody else, coaches and players. And so, we're just looking to come together as a defensive unit and continue to get better.
Eric Stokes slid over when John went out to cover Devontae, and obviously he got exposed to what it is to cover the top of the league. What did that show you? I know he had some struggles, but what did that show you from him going through that experience, and what do you tell him after he kind of goes through that for the first time?
Are you talking down in the red zone?
Yeah.
Well, it was a pretty freaky move that Devontae made. It was cover zero. I think that's a tough position for any defensive back to be in when you're covering a guy of that caliber. But, you have to have a short memory in this league, especially at corner, because there's going to be times when you're going to get beat. That's just the nature of it. And especially when you're in a cover zero situation, that can happen. So, but I think, he's just got to be resilient, which I know he is, and he'll get back out there today and compete to the best of his ability.
Down the road, y'all are going to have some joint practices. There seem to be a lot of those joint practices league-wide this preseason. What made y'all decide to schedule them again this year, and does the reduction in preseason games have any factor in that?
No, I just like to change the monotony of camp, and I think these guys kind of get sick of going against each other. I know not everybody's a fan of it, but some guys are. And it really, as a coach, you just want to keep it fresh. You want to keep it interesting for these guys. You want guys competing, as hard as they can each and every day. But also, I think it also kind of affords you the ability to rest some of your veteran players and not play them in some of those preseason games, because we know every team in the league has the same challenges. You need your guys out there available on Sunday. And so by not exposing them in a game situation where it's a little bit more controlled in practice, I just think that's a little bit better for us.
Matt, is it different this time around because it'll be Robert and your brother, and they're not going to go and call San Francisco, hopefully, with information, as opposed to last time when Chuck Pagano's brother was on the Texans? Like, are you going to be able to do different things that you did the last time because you're not hiding things? Or
You'll have to wait and see, Jason. No, I think, those are guys I trust, and anytime you're going against anybody in this league, that's kind of an agreement that the tape doesn't go anywhere. So certainly that, I think it's always a concern. Shoot, it's a concern every day when we're out there, what are people seeing? But at the same time, you still got to continue to work on the things that you're going to do in all three phases.
Matt, the truism on roster construction and making an NFL roster as a young player has always been your path is through special teams. Like you gotta shine on teams if you want a chance. Is it harder in today's NFL, especially with the new CBA, the fact that you're not in pads until next Tuesday? Is it harder to get a look at guys that are trying to compete for those special team spots?
Yeah, I certainly think it is, especially with one less preseason game. But we'll try to do everything we can to make sure we get the adequate evaluations on these guys. But I do think that is a great lesson for any young player. I mean, you look at some of the greats, Terrell Davis making that big splash play. I remember working in Washington. Mike Shanahan would talk about that quite a bit when they were playing a game. I want to say it was over in Japan or whatever, and he blew somebody up, and that kind of got everybody's attention. And then he got his opportunity as a runner, and the rest is history. And then we were watching the other day in a team meeting, talking. It was, I don't know, one of the 50 greatest players or whatever, and it was a round table deal that they had at ESPN, and Bill Belichick was talking about Lawrence Taylor running down as a gunner in a playoff game. And it's like, wow, that's pretty. You're talking about one of the top pass rushers of all time going out there playing gunner. You just don't hear about that stuff anymore.
Even without pads on, is there an individual that's really stuck out to you so far? I mean, it's early, but some guy that's caught your eye already?
I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of guys, but, we always try to temper the expectation right now. We've had 3 days of practice, and then yesterday, that was kind of a half practice, if you will. So it's just a little early to, get too excited about any of these young guys right now. They got to go out there and continually do it on a daily basis. And then once we get the pads on and then get to some game action, I think we'll have a better feel and better evaluation of these guys.
Matt, you have 17 linemen on the roster right now. Just logistically speaking, how difficult is it to get them, not just reps, but you have so many guards/tackles. Lucas is your number one guard one moment, the number 3 set of the next. There's a lot of, I think that's challenging.
Yeah, it is, definitely. And that's why you'd love to go out there and have 100 reps, but there's also everybody else you got to worry about as well. So that is challenging, no doubt about it. I think, you can really -1 from that total right now with where David is, and certainly we know what kind of player he is. But no, I think it is a challenge, especially when you're not sure exactly who your 5 are going to be, or even who's going to make the roster. So, it is a fine line in trying to get the necessary reps at each specific position with each guy. But that's just we're going to do the best we can to make sure that we get the best guys on this team.
We're going to hear from Marquez after practice today. Aside from continuing to make the big plays down the field like he's done consistently for you, what more do you expect to see from him as far as what he's going to bring to your offense this year?
One thing that we talked about is obviously this is a big year for him, going into year 4, and he's made a lot of splash plays for us, and he's done a great job of not only in the pass game, but you think about 2 years ago in the big run versus the Vikings at their place, the block he had, in the secondary that helped spring Aaron Jones to kind of break the game open. There was another clip, I want to say, down when we played Dallas. There was great clips last season of him doing his 111th, both in the run and the pass. So I think it's just the consistency that he comes out with each and every day. I think it's, him being a leader in that room as well. I mean, everybody knows that Tay is the leader in that room, but you can never have enough leaders. And I think that that's something that he's mindful of. I know that he and Devontae, Vrabel, Ravel Martin, they've all talked about it with him, and I really like where he's trending, and I think that he continuously is getting better.
Last one to Jason. Sorry, I can't come to the other ones during the week, so I have to get my questions in. Thank you. Is there a difference? You've been around a lot of really good quarterbacks. You've been around young quarterbacks that are growing. Is there a difference between open for Aaron Rodgers and open for other types of quarterbacks? And how does that change what you're able to do offensively when you have guys that, Randall's not where he was 8 years ago, but you've got a guy that maybe guys are more open because of who's throwing it?
You just couldn't not ask an Aaron question, could you? That's okay. We'll forgive you. No, I think, shoot, his accuracy, and you see it show up in practice, and it's just the little things that you sometimes take for granted, the little run alerts, and just how perfect the ball placement is to allow these guys to get the max yardage on whatever it is. So, yeah, he is so accurate, and he's got great anticipation. I think you saw it yesterday down in the red zone, the throw he hit to Bobby Tunyon, well before Bobby turned around. He hit Jay Sternberger on another one versus an all-out. He's a special talent. And so certainly we coach all those guys the same way in terms of the timing, decision timing, and then, it's on them to make the accurate throw. But he can fit it in some tight spots, and he's been doing it at a high level for a long time. But I don't think it necessarily changes what we're doing offensively. Certainly, the more experience you have, you might have favorite plays or whatever, and that can influence some of the things that we decide when we're out there on the practice field or in some game situations, because you ultimately want to put all your players, but specifically that player, in the most comfortable position where he believes in what we're doing, that we're going to go out there and execute, because he's the one spitting it out in the huddle. And I think those other 10 in that huddle can feel from that guy whether or not this is going to work or not. And so we talk with all the quarterbacks in terms of what do you feel really good about? And then we try to get those reps in. And then, there's some times where we're going to force feed them you got to get a little bit more comfortable with this concept. So, but it doesn't really necessarily change what we do.